Greetings, thank you for lending an ear to the Voice of the Times for Friday, September 17, 2021. For today's editorial, Afghanistan desperately needs foreign aid. A month after taking over Afghanistan, the Taliban is beginning to realize the Herculean task it faces in rebuilding the country's economy and that it cannot do the job alone. The caretaker government of the Islamic Emirate has been sounding off the World Bank and other multilateral funding institutions to resume their assistance programs to the country. The lending agencies shut down operations in Afghanistan after the Taliban swept into power, with the World Bank specifically citing concerns that the new regime would affect the country's development prospects, especially for women. The Taliban inherited an economy that was already heavily dependent on foreign aid. More than a third of Afghanistan's GDP is propped up by outside funding. As the economy sinks, it will drag Afghans deeper into poverty. The United Nations Development Program, or UNDP, sees about 97% of the population slipping below the poverty line if the crisis is not addressed. Usually, in a country in this situation, the international financial institutions such as the IMF, the World Bank, and all the bilateral and multilateral financial institutions would get together with the UN and propose an economic reform program. We know this is not going to happen, grimly notes Abdallah Al-Dardari, the UNDP resident representative in Afghanistan. What's holding back the funding agencies is the ambivalence toward the new government they will be dealing with. The Taliban isn't exactly a paragon of human rights, and its predilection to use force in quelling dissent has surfaced in the violent dispersal of women protesters just days after it marched into Kabul. The group's misogynist mindset will not earn it points with the World Bank. The 33 men, no women included, interim cabinet headed by Mohammad Hassan Akhand is dominated by the Pashtun, the country's biggest ethnic group who make up Taliban's old guard. Observers say the leadership is not inclusive enough, with the Pashtun crowding out minority groups that could be its Achilles heels. This early, cracks are beginning to show. Two factions, one led by the interim Deputy Prime Minister Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar and the other by the interim Refugee Minister Khalil ur Rahman Haqqani, are reported to be fiercely feuding over policy directions and other key issues. The two sides are said to have come to blows, with Baradar fleeing to Kandahar. Aid agencies will have to wait for the smoke to clear to determine who is actually in control of the fledgling government before launching negotiations. Starved of foreign assistance, Afghanistan could descend into a humanitarian catastrophe. Its fragile healthcare system is already in danger of slipping into an irreversible coma after hundreds of healthcare workers fled the country. UNDP's Dardari says 18 million of Afghanistan's 14 million people face multiple crises: internal displacement, migration, people fleeing the country, people joining illicit businesses. He sees the opium trade along the country's prime backyard industry flourishing much more than it is today. Simply because there are no other jobs, domestic violence will increase too. It is a foreign aid vacuum that China is eager to fill. Beijing has announced it is initially offering at least $31 million worth of emergency aid to Afghanistan. The assistance will include grain, winter supplies, and 3 million COVID-19 vaccine doses. Already, the Taliban has embraced China, which shares a border with Afghanistan, as its main partner in its reconstruction efforts. China's eagerness to help its beleaguered neighbor is undoubtedly driven not solely by humanitarian considerations. Afghanistan fits nicely into Beijing's Belt and Trade Initiative, a strategy to develop economic and political alliances in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa designed to expand its sphere of influence. China is willing to gloss over the Taliban's patchy human rights record and asks only that it cracks down on extremist forces and cooperate in anti-narcotics efforts. Right now, where the aid comes from is not the main concern for Afghanistan. It's how fast the aid is delivered and how efficiently it is distributed to the people that need it most. There is not a moment to lose. And that's the editorial for Friday, September 17, 2021. For more news and information, get a copy of the Manila Times on print, subscribe to its digital edition, or log on to www.manilatimes.net. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram and listen to the Voice of the Times.